So talk me through this. You just released an intel piece over at on3.com, the latest scoop.
Yeah.
Guys have until a minute before midnight tonight to submit their paperwork. What are we expecting here as we get to the finish line? Is it going to be a mad dash of guys throwing their name in there and trying to get some NIL dollars, or what's going to happen here?
Yeah. I mean, so guys have to obviously submit their paperwork by midnight tonight, but then compliance departments have 48 hours to put names in the portal. So I still expect things to be pretty crazy Wednesday and Thursday in terms of entries. And then, as we reported yesterday, the grad transfer deadline got pushed back a day. So we'll still see some grad transfers popping in on Friday. Yesterday was one of the craziest days we've had yet in these like 10 days or whatever it's been at this point. And I think that things will continue to get busier.
Yeah, a lot of big names jumping in there, like Peyton Woodyard jumping in there. I think that probably surprised some folks in Tuscaloosa. What are some other big names that you're watching right now before I start just peppering you with questions on specific names?
So some of the big names I'm watching right now want to try to figure out what Tyler Barron's going to do, right? The Louisville edge was at Miami this weekend. I know Ole Miss is still somewhat interested. That he had committed to the Rebels before he flipped to Louisville. And then I've been told that the USC is going to try to make a push too. So that's one name I'm keeping an eye on. And then obviously the other three big defense linemen on the market right now, the TCU defense lineman Demonic Williams, and then the two Michigan State defense linemen Simeon, Baro, and Derek Harman. Those are kind of like the guys I'm trying to figure out where they're going. They're all kind of wrapping up visits, and that's going to be the next few dominoes that I'm kind of keeping an eye on at the moment.
I was about to ask you about those two big boys from Michigan State, man. I mean, we talked about it on our segment to start this show. Guys like that, 6'5", 320, and 6'3", 290, respectively, do not grow on trees, regardless of the transfer portal. Is there any feel you have on either one of those guys when it comes to maybe some schools that are finalists for them that we can tell at this point, or still too soon to tell?
No, there's a few, and the other thing I'll add on what you were saying too, JD, is I mean, they don't make 6'5", 300-pound guys with experience. Like these guys have played a lot of football, and that's invaluable, and you know that. But when it comes to schools to watch, Simeon Baro was at Miami yesterday. He's already visited Missouri and LSU. Texas could land a final visit, from my understanding. So I think that there's yet to be too much clarity just yet with him. On the flip side, Derek Harman called off his Miami visit. He's been to Colorado and USC. I like those two schools a lot right now, but whenever you talk about Derek Harman, you have to remind yourself that he visited Oregon and Ohio State in the wintertime before he withdrew from the portal. So those are kind of the four schools I'm personally watching at the moment for Derek Harman.
I was going to say, man, you get out to Colorado, Ryan Garcia's on the sideline, Lil Wayne's doing a concert. It's like, okay, maybe it's not that cold. Maybe I could see myself out here in the altitude in Boulder. So, I mean, if you get on campus there, I feel like that has to play in your favor. Speaking of a guy from Colorado, though, Cormani McClain signed with NIL representation. Does that impact his choices in your mind? Like, is that going to help him when we talk about where he could end up at some point, having someone to represent him to a degree?
Wrote about it this morning, but also wrote about it this weekend, and I've said it a few times. No school has really emerged yet as like the one to watch for Cormani McClain. From my understanding, I've talked to some people. I don't think he's made a visit yet. Actually reached out to his mother, and she said they had released a visit schedule when she was ready, but haven't heard anything else. I think signing NIL representation is maybe a sign that this is going to maybe start to pick up some speed. You look across the country, and a lot of these agents have a lot to do about guys going on visits, lining up visits, making sure that details are in order before a commitment. So I would think that signing representation maybe makes this pursuit of finding a new home a little bit more serious, per se.
Pete, what about Penny Boon? It looked like it was Kentucky and Georgia, and those were kind of the two schools for him. And now I don't know where UCF is in the mix for the one-time Toledo running back, and then he's Louisville running back. I mean, what's the latest with him?
Yeah, Penny Boon obviously went in the portal earlier this month. He was supposed to go to Washington for a visit initially early in the month. That got called off. Same thing with an Ole Miss visit. Georgia and Kentucky, like you said, were in the mix. Georgia doesn't have a lot of scholarships. I believe Jaden Rashada took their last one.
Wow.
So that was kind of the holdup there. And then visited Kentucky, as it's been reported. I think academics are a hurdle for him, but I think he's going to figure it out. But we'll have to see. Visited UCF on Monday, and he's still on campus as of today, and things are trending towards the Knights at the moment. And on 3, Steve Wiltfong and myself just put in some picks for him to land in Orlando.
Wow. Okay, so there you have it. Make sure you're tuned in with Pete Nakos over on Twitter, putting out picks. Okay, so lock it in over there. Pete, UCF not the only school in Florida that's making some noise. Miami getting 4 commitments over the weekend from the portal. Is it an NIL game for them, or why are they able to be so successful in the portal?
You know, I'm not going to lie to you. Miami has one of the top NIL collectives and programs in the country. That's not really a secret at this point. At the same time, though, I think you look at some of those pickups and they're really stacking the offense. And I know Sam Brown is not like the biggest wide receiver name, but he's talented. He's got experience with Shannon Dawson from his time at West Virginia. And I think it makes a lot of sense as a target for Cam Ward. And then obviously Damian Martinez, the best running back in the portal, and an all Pac-12 selection. So I really like those 2 pickups. And it'll be really interesting to see how this defensive side of the ball comes together too. Do they get Tyler Barron? Do they get one of the Michigan State defensive linemen? How does that come together? That's what I'm keeping my eye on now.
It's really funny how the excuse of, well, they dropped a bag at the last minute has sort of evolved. Like, it used to be they dropped a bag, that's illegal. Now it's like, hey, they dropped a bag. And my response to that would be, well, why didn't you? Why didn't you drop a bag? If that was what it's going to take to land this guy, why are you salty about being broke? You know what I'm saying? Maybe we don't speak too loudly about that if Miami wants to pay top dollar. Speaking of top dollar, revenue sharing. Some rumblings last night. You reported on it as well over at on3.com. Just your overall thoughts on where this thing is headed and kind of what this means for college football, as broad as that is.
Yeah, I mean, great reporting by Pete Thamel, and Ross Dellinger had a great story earlier today kind of breaking it down. This has been something we knew was coming. I mean, obviously there's some really thorough reporting by ESPN, but we kind of knew the settlement talks were happening. They've obviously ramped up. None of it is really surprising to me. And that's just my insider. I've been following this kind of take, but at the same time, it's obviously monumental to the future of college sports. The revenue sharing is coming. We've been talking about it, me and UJD, for quite a while on here, but how it all shakes out is really interesting. Obviously, this House versus NCAA antitrust case, it sounds like the NCAA is going to owe some money, however it kind of shakes out. And I mean, the millions, if not billions of dollars. I think billions might be a stretch if we get to a settlement, but a lot of money's on the line here. And I think the thing that we have to keep an eye on, and you pointed it out as I was jumping on, is what's it mean for the entire college football landscape as a whole, not just like the Power Four.
Yeah, I mean, would that help roster retention in your mind? Because you're dropping $20 million on specific big boy schools like, hey, maybe I can keep that All-American wide receiver that was going to jump in the portal and go to X, Y, and Z school. Is it help roster retention? Are we on the right track there? Or is it like, yeah, everyone getting $20 million is great, but the big boys are still the big boys and they still have a little extra firepower?
I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I think Shannon Terry, our founder, made a great point on Twitter. Like, NIL deals are still going to exist in this new landscape. And with that, right, if there's a cap, like a $15 to $20 million cap on revenue sharing, then you're obviously going to have collectives still exist and pay out extra dollars. I guess the big thing that we need to watch here is, do they strike some sort of a collective bargaining deal, right? That's what they have in the professional landscape. If you get a collective bargaining deal, then it can ensure that there's not as much tampering. And the reason why I say there wouldn't be as much tampering is because a college collective bargaining deal would set in place all these types of rules and fines that would come along with tampering and things like that.
Interesting. Okay, so those are just some big fish, obviously, that are swimming around in the college football ocean right now. There's another big fish out there, though, that I think we need to address. It's sort of the whale in the ocean, if you will. EA Sports, College Football 25. Whenever I have a question about this, you're the first person I text. A little bit of news breaking yesterday from, I believe it was Matt Brown with Extra Points having a newsletter, and then he went on Feinbaum as well. Alternate covers is sounding like the way that we're going to be trending here. Do we know the number of covers? Do you have a gauge for this, or just any thoughts in general on the latest from College Football 25 and EA Sports?
You know, I've been hearing about these alternate covers for a few months, and I have yet to get the clarity on this, but it sounds like there could be like some main title covers and then maybe some other covers as well, like maybe a Carson Beck could be on like a special edition, like kind of
okay.
like Ultimate Team cover. Like, I'm not saying it's Carson Beck for sure, but I've heard of like some different varieties of covers. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously really exciting. It's gonna be really fun to play with the actual athletes in the game. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it kind of all shakes out. And I mean, you know, it's like you've never been able to play with like a player who's been on the cover in the game, so that'll be fun to check out.
It's wild, dude. It is wild that we're entering into a world now where you can play. If Carson Beck's on the cover, Carson Beck's the quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs and not QB 15 or, you know, whatever other moniker we were using for that starting quarterback. We're using the Ohio Bobcats in Dynasty Mode. Is that accurate, or who are we taking to a national title?
There's a possibility. There's a possibility. But, you know, there's always some fun, too, JD, in taking, like, a bottom-tier Power 4 team and trying to see what you can do with them. Like, I know that isn't always everyone. I've had a lot of fun with Vanderbilt and NCAA 14.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can restructure some conferences even more.
I love it. Iowa scoring 40 a game. Last thing I'll say here, if there is a transfer portal special edition for all the suits watching this, because I'm sure they're tuned in. They're always tuned in, the good folks at EA Sports. Let's get a Pete Nakos cover, all right? The ball is in your court. We'll leave it at that. Pete, you're the man, brother. Get some sleep. Hopefully here soon, and we appreciate all your time.
I appreciate it, JD. Have a great day.
Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.